Peanuts or noodles? Terus dua itu aku ada dulu. Oke, kontra saja.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting shortly. Geeta ma'am, could you please let me know when we're ready to begin?
I will just, after 5, I will start the meeting. Then Geeta will take over, then you can take over, right? Chalo. I think just 1 minute more, you'll wait. Few people are still joining.
Okay.
Good afternoon, esteemed principals, dedicated teachers, Dr. Geeta, principal of HJ College, our expert speaker, Mr. Yash Banka, our dedicated core team, Deepika Chatterjee, Director of JVCN, Sheila, Head of Academy, Children's Academic, Kalpana, Principal Jamna Bhai, Dr. Neelam, CEO, Academic Pridarshini Group Pune, USF in collaboration with Adit Birla Academic, HJ College, Quadrac Vadodara, Green Acres Academic, and Clone Futura have arranged the regular monthly training programs for enhancing the skill of all the teaching and non-teaching staff. It is with great pleasure and honor that I welcome you to this professional development training session by our very reputed Mr. Banka. This session is being organized by Dr. Geeta, Principal of the HJ College. I am also obliged to the trustee, Mr. Rajiv Hazrat, who is the treasurer of USF, who has connected us with the HJ College for regular training sessions. We are thrilled to get associated with such academic team and educators. As you know, session is an investment in your professional growth and future success of students. Continuous professional development is not an option, but it is a necessity. Training will provide you tools and techniques to foster a positive and inclusive classroom culture, human values, where every student get valued, respected, and motivated to reach their full potential. I encourage you to embrace this opportunity that lies ahead. Now over to Geeta to take it forward. Thanking you. Geeta is not there. Dr. Geeta, what happened? Dr.
Okay.
Dr.
Now
Geeta.
now I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Kedia sir, for this opportunity. I'm sure we will definitely live up to your expectations because you want us to enhance the teaching learning paradigms of all teachers across our state, across the country. This is a very noble cause also. And in the bargain, in the process, we also will be learning a lot. And so we are really thankful to you for having granted us this opportunity. Yes, and it's also an honor to be among all these, the gathering of such elite principals and such great educationists So it's a very nice thing for us also as an HA College of Education to be part of this kind of a program. Now, this program is being organized under Rashtriya Uchchatar Shikshan Abhiyan because Rashtriya RUSA in short, it is also concerned with the quality of teachers and how to enhance the quality of teachers. Now, in our college, we have a coordinator for RUSA, and that is Professor Karuna Sinha. I hope she's around. Professor Karuna Sinha. Yeah, I think she's there. And then there are coordinators of this course, this particular program, which is called Contemporary Pedagogical Paradigms. We have titled it this way, Contemporary Pedagogical Paradigms. And the coordinators for this particular course, which will span over about 20 sessions, would be Dr. Archana Katgeri from our college and Dr. Pallavi Talekar from our college. Okay, so they will be coordinating this entire program. Now, it is very, very nice that we have to we definitely know that we have to enhance our pedagogical paradigms and also our pedagogical practices so that we have the sound judgment whenever we have to conduct our sessions and conduct our teaching learning processes. Now, for that, in order to enhance this kind of program that is undertaken is truly commendable. So I thank Kedia sir for this. Yeah. And to begin this session, we have the first person, the first resource person, and that is Mr. Yash Banka. And he would be talking on design thinking. But for more better introduction, I would recall Ma'am Archana Katgeri from our college to introduce Mr. Yash Banka. Dr. Archana, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Geeta ma'am. A very good afternoon, everyone. It's my proud privilege to introduce an eminent speaker for today's session, Mr. Yash Banka. Sir is an innovator and designer with a strong foundation in technology and human-centered design. He began his academic journey at Jamnabai Nursery School in Mumbai, earned a BTech from Manipal Institute of Technology and completed a master's degree in integrated innovation for products and services at Carnegie Mellon University, Pittsburgh. Third, has held a national board position at IAESTE India, co-founded a consulting club and was one of the only 7 Indian students to receive the prestigious Apple WWDC 18 scholarship. His entrepreneurial spirit led him to start an e-commerce brand while still in school, a venture that continues to grow even today. Sir's notable achievements include winning the CMU Hack a Startup competition in 2021, co-inventing a US patent for a power-actuated stair system for trucks, and co-authoring a published paper in human-computer interaction. Sir has interned at leading organizations like Amazon, SPIMF, KOC University, Intuit, thereby gaining experience across business, design, engineering, and research. In his final semester at CMU, Sir co-authored a thesis on design thinking for education in India, which was published and presented at the Industrial Designer Society of America's 2023 Education Symposium in New York. He has also worked as a designer for mixed reality education games at Norila and contributed to instructional design at CME. Currently, Sir is an experienced design lead at Wong Doody in Bangalore. So what a multifaceted personality and such a young resource person. So, sir, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We all are looking forward for your session. Over to you, Kedia, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. No, I think we should not waste time. Everybody is waiting for messages, not for us.
Thank you
Thank
very much. That was such a great introduction. I'll just start sharing my screen and then I'll talk. Geeta ma'am, can you confirm if my screen's visible?
Yes, it's visible. Yes, yes, very much.
Thank you. As I said, it's such an honor to be hosting this session. I still feel it's not been that long since I was in school. So this is really overwhelming in that sense. And thank you, Dr. Geeta Shetty, for inviting me.
Most welcome. My pleasure.
So yeah, so the session plan for today is I'll give you, I think I've already got such a good introduction, but I'll just add on to that. Then we'll talk about education in India and why now. This is mostly derived from the research I did for my thesis, and I've added more on design and design thinking since that's our focus today. We'll be connecting it to education, seeing the broader goal, what the education system in India wants to achieve in terms of design. Talk a little bit about a thought experiment, curiosity and reflection. Talk about growth mindset, which is derived from the research done by the psychologist Carol Dweck. And with an example from IDEO, we'll look at how design thinking can be used today, starting today by you. Since we're such a large group, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, please drop it in the chat. And if you're on YouTube, you can drop it on that chat as well. I have someone who's collecting it all, and then we can quickly go through a few of them at the end of the session. So yeah, let's begin. So again, hi, I'm Yash Vanka. I create value at the intersection of technology, design, and business. A little bit about me. So I see that the principal of Jamnabai is on this call, and that's such an honor because it feels like life has come full circle. So during school, I started an e-commerce brand, which is doing well, pretty good even today. I did my 11th and 12th in Maharashtra HSC as I was preparing for engineering. Then I did my BTech at Manipal in mechanical engineering. And during that, I was an intern at SBI Mutual Fund one summer for digital solutions. And that same summer, I got an Apple scholarship, which allowed me to go to California to attend the Worldwide Developers Conference, as well as interact with senior leadership, including Tim Cook. The next summer, I was a research intern at Koç University in Istanbul. That summer, I was exploring material science. And I then joined an organization called ISTA, which is an international technical exchange organization. I was on the national board trying to get more internships for Indian students in engineering as well as STEM courses. My final semester, I was briefly at Amazon. This was during the pandemic, learning more about operations management at their warehousing facilities. More recently, I was at Carnegie Mellon doing my master's in integrated innovation for products and services. So this is basically a long name for the integrated product development process, which uses design thinking principles to innovate. And the belief is that innovation versus invention. So innovation is something that anyone can do. Given the right direction and time spent on it, innovating is a systematic process and you can create value. You can create value based on the process. In my first semester, I won the Hacker Startup, pitted against all the business school students at CMU. I was also doing an internship at Scott Institute. And the one summer that I had, I was exploring program management at Intuit, which is known for QuickBooks, TurboTax, and a few other products. After graduating, I joined this edtech company called Norilla. We were heavily into research in terms of education and technological interventions for STEM education. And we had a system that is now deployed in over 30 children's museums and also a few schools around the world. Side by side, I was helping with curriculum development for my alma mater. And early this January, I came back to India and for a brief period, I was at an award-winning industrial design studio called Future Factory. And today I am at Wongdoody as a full-time lead experience designer. So that was about me. So I quickly wanted to share 3 projects that reaffirmed my belief in design thinking methods. The first was my master's capstone project, the one that is today patent pending, and we expect to see it on the road early next year as our sponsor is now exploring funding opportunities and partnerships.
Yes, just increase your volume, please.
वो मैं नहीं बोल रही हूँ सर आपका रेस नहीं हो रहा है वो मेरा
So I'm not able to increase my volume. It's on full. I want to quickly share 3 projects. So the first one was the master's capstone. Second was a smaller project, but I really want to get into the depth of this because it feels very familiar in terms of the problems that we got in school for science exhibitions and projects. But the way I approached it, I felt that had evolved because now I was aware of design thinking and the systematic approach. And the last is why I am here today. Design thinking for education in India, my master's thesis, which I co-wrote with my fellow student and friend Raghavi Kabra, who's today also an experienced designer at Adobe in San Francisco. So I want to preface this entire presentation by saying that I'm not an educator. And given the years of experience in this virtual room that we have, the best way to come up with ideas that will probably be more contextual than any I share today would be for all of you to regularly communicate, get together, ideate, test, and iterate. That is the spirit of design thinking. So I just want to introduce you to the methods and tools that you can leverage to get that started. So let's dive right in. Someone when describing education in India said, we have islands of excellence floating in a sea of mediocrity. You represent schools that are the metaphorical islands of excellence. So why not get started here and have that thinking percolate down to the entire education system? But when we look at the overall picture, education, though evolving, has for years been largely transactional and centered on rote learning rather than understanding of the concept. More often than not, the evaluation system prioritizes marks and percentages over learning, which leaves little room for creativity. And when we look at higher education, think engineering, management studies, the stagnation is clearly visible. Year after year, the same news comes out. Unemployment is an issue. People are choosing streams just to get employed, but that's also not working out. So there is a gap that needs to be filled. And that's where I came across the National Education Policy when it came out in 2020, which initiated much chatter on design in the education system. It is a chaotic bricolage of seemingly all the right keywords: 21st century skills, holistic development, multilingualism, artificial intelligence, multidisciplinary, math, science, and more. The lofty goal will need an actionable roadmap to implementation. There also seems to be some confusion between design education and design thinking for education, which cuts across all the stakeholders that I spoke to. During our research, we intended to unpack some of this chaos by talking to experts from the field, analyzing the current system, and relying on our own experiences, having each spent over 18 years in the Indian educational institutes. So let's talk about design and design thinking. I have sort of lightened design and design thinking because I believe design thinking is more of just thinking if you embody the idea. And that is what everyone needs to start doing. We need to think more. We need to question more. We just don't need to accept whatever is shown. And I hope you do that as well today in the comments and we can have a fruitful discussion. So going back a little into the history of where this came from, design thinking originated in the mid 20th century with roots in industrial design and engineering. Herb Simon, who was actually a professor at my alma mater, Carnegie Mellon, laid the foundation for design thinking in his 1969 book, where he framed problem solving as a design process. In the 80s and 90s, Rolf Faste and David Kelly expanded these ideas, integrating them into business innovation. Tim Brown, who's the CEO of IDEO, later popularized design thinking as a user-centered, iterative approach that is now widely embraced across fields, including education. So coming to the key aspects of design thinking. One, it's human-centered. So it focuses on the needs and experiences of the end user. In the case of education, the end user is always the student. It's iterative, involves cycles of prototyping, testing, refining, and it's collaborative. So it involves cross-functional teamwork, and your teamwork includes your end user. So common myths about design in general, or design thinking more specifically, is that it's only for designers, or design thinking is a linear process. Like there are 5 steps, so I need to do step 1, then step 2. That is not true. Design thinking is about making things look good. That is also not true. That is probably visual design, which is one small field within the broader design field. So when we come to core principles of design thinking, these are the 5 steps I was mentioning. You've got empathy, which is understanding the needs and experiences of users. Define, which is clearly articulating the problem to be solved. Ideation, which is generating a wide range of ideas and solutions. And this is the most fun part whenever you're doing anything related to design thinking. Then comes prototyping. This is where you create tangible representations of those ideas. Last comes testing, evaluating and refining those prototypes based on user feedback. And not to forget iteration, which is repeating this entire process to refine your solution. Another way to look at it in more actionable terms is simply frame a question, gather inspiration, generate ideas, make those ideas tangible, test to learn, and then ultimately share your story. So I'd mentioned this project called HangBits, and let's take a quick look at the project. Why this? Because as I said before, it was a very simple ask. Redesign a hanger. The course that I took was called Design That Lasts. And we wanted to redesign the hanger, thinking about design that lasts in terms of sustainability and good for a better hanger, let's say. But we ended up questioning the brief. The hanger has been around for so long. Everyone must have thought about this. Why do we redesign the hanger? Why even attempt this problem? And as we did more research, we ended up making something new that wasn't really a hanger. This reminded me of the project topics that we were given in school whenever there was a science fair or a project in any subject. But here my approach had evolved through learning and practice of questioning and ideating and iterating. So it's a very simple project. I'll quickly run you through it. So hangers, there's so many. They're so mundane, so small, and so hidden. They're closed in your closet. Let's get to know your hanger. In terms of material, you've got plastic, metal, cardboard, felt. They come in all shapes and sizes, depending on what item you're trying to hang and what is the status of that item. Is it on a store shelf, in your wardrobe? And hangers tend to be perceived as interchangeable, disposable. They're produced in high volumes, sold at low prices. You get packs from 10 hangers to 100 hangers and given out sometimes for free with a garment purchase or even when you give your clothes for dry cleaning. They are discarded prematurely. 85% of them end up in landfills, and 10 billion hangers are produced each year, of which 8 billion are discarded. So in terms of sustainability, you can repurpose them. You can have DIY projects. You can recycle and reuse them. Some companies have internal schemes. Some pair up with sustainability companies. Or you can make them eco-friendly at the very start by using cardboard hangers and biodegradable wood. But that isn't the root of the problem. Is it hangers? No. So it's the apparel industry. Emissions are estimated to double Textiles are responsible for almost 10% of microplastics, which is becoming a growing concern. Fashion industry is responsible for 20% of the wastewater globally. And in the US, you have 11.3 million tons of textiles in landfills annually. That's the same as throwing out 2,150 pieces of clothing every second. Coming to the Pareto principle, so 80% and 20%. What is this? On average in the US, they wear 80% of their they don't wear 80% of their clothes, but they think they don't wear about 60%. So what was our thought process out here? A, how do we change individual consumption habits? Maybe through awareness, creating something accessible, creating a rich experience, helping people recognize what they wear and how much, and using the hanger instead of redesigning it as the gateway tool to record and measure your wardrobe. In comes Hangbits. So how does Hangbits work? You've got 3 easy to assemble pieces, which you could probably even 3D print. They come in different colors to indicate different things. So here you snap them together onto your existing hanger. No need to buy a new one. And what the dot indicates is the week of the month. Then you've got the name of the month and an arrow indicating the week plus month. Whenever you wear something and put it back on a hanger, you just indicate which week of which month you wore it. So the next time you're browsing your wardrobe, you know when you last wore something, and that would make you question, okay, I haven't worn this for like 3 months now. Maybe I should either wear it or donate it so that I'm not holding on to things that I don't need. Iteration was key. We came up with a lot of mechanisms, reduce the information complexity. We didn't need to know the exact day you wore it because the idea was to just figure out how long it has been and ultimately create a rich experience. Make a behavior change, make an unseen object seen, increase its importance beyond just acting as a supporting character to your clothes. Helping people recognize the consumption, which gives you personal satisfaction. Increase the 80-20 ratio, longevity of wardrobe and more sustainable purchasing habits. And lastly, eventually decrease how many clothes are purchased. Less consumption will be less waste. So coming back to design thinking. So there are 2 types of thinking. You've got divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent is expansive type of thinking. Think generative design. It is exploratory and focuses on creating new knowledge or ideas, and it often thought of as creating choices for whatever you're trying to do. Whereas convergent thinking is focused and systematic. It allows for sense making through patterns, priorities, and information, often thought of as making choices. Let's talk about the double diamond framework. It represents a clear visual map of the design process that is divided into 4 distinct phases. The double diamond aligns closely with design thinking, both emphasizing divergent and convergent thinking to solve complex problems. The first diamond begins with broad research and exploration, which is the discover phase, where you uncover insights, identify user needs, and define the problem space. Key activities out here include user research, observation, interviews, and brainstorming. The second part of the first diamond is the define phase. Here you narrow down the insights you gathered to clearly define the core problem or opportunity. Activities out here will include synthesizing research, identifying key challenges, and framing a clear problem statement. So the first diamond is all about solving the right problem. And the second diamond is first you design, which you explore, design or think of it as develop. Explore possible solutions through ideation, prototyping, and iteration. Key activities are idea generation, concept development, and user testing. And the last is delivering the result, delivering the solution. This is where you ensure that you solve the problem in the right way. So here you refine and finalize the solution, preparing it for implementation or launch. Key activities out here would be testing, again, iteration, finalization, and delivery of the solution. But what is the solution? What is the right solution? So the right solution would lie at the intersection of desirability, viability, and feasibility. Putting it in education terms, where students are your end users, as we call them, what do you students want from the experience, the learning experience? Is it viable in the sense, can the experience match the curriculum needs? Because after all, you need to match the curriculum needs. You cannot go completely wild and say that I'm not going to teach what is there in the syllabus. And lastly, feasibility. Do we have the resources that can support this experience, be it financial, be it space or educators, whatever it is? So these are just a few of the design thinking methods. They're documented brilliantly by the Luma Institute. They're all freely accessible via the website. The link is at the top, and I'll be sharing it at the end as well. I'd strongly suggest trying some of them out when you have a staff development session in your school, and even during your class after you've tried it yourself. I'll go through some of these that I feel are most relevant. And later on, I'll share design thinking methods that have been contextualized for your classroom setting. So here it's been divided into looking, understanding, making, and there are a lot of other buckets we can put them into. Starting with ethnographic research, this is the easiest to do, and think of interviewing just as talking, but documenting what you're listening to. So it's a technique for gathering information through direct dialogue. Think of it as you get a focus group together of teachers in your school, and you start discussing a particular problem that you've been facing. You'll start with easy questions, then dive into the specifics. You'll listen carefully and take good notes. Coming to fly on the wall observation. Some people have really good observation skills. They'll spot something in their peripheral vision and remember it forever. But you can do it in a systematic manner. You'll identify a subject area to study, and you'll develop a plan of what you want to go ahead and observe. Obviously, you will end up recording your findings in videos, photos, notes. Coming to contextual inquiry, think of it as a mix of interviewing plus observation. So you're going to observe the people or things you want to observe without interrupting, but at certain moments, you'll go ahead and ask a question, depending on what you're looking at. Again, you'll record your findings. And the last is probably the most difficult to do, but it is the most empathetic way of doing research. Walk a mile immersion. Think of it like literally putting yourself in someone else's shoe. Now, suppose I am looking to study how senior citizens drive cars. Asking people can only get you so much information. So I'll wear an empathy suit. It is a physical suit which will inhibit my motor skills to a certain degree, and then I will try to drive that car. That's when I'll realize the problems that I face and be able to empathize with the user. Coming to a few more methods, these are games. These are gamified. Design thinking is not just about serious study or observation. You can actually make it fun, not just for yourself, but for everyone involved. What's on your radar is an exercise where you draw like a bullseye diagram, and you get people to put ideas or problems that they face. The outermost circle represents the least concerning things, and the innermost are the most important ones. So you get together a group of people and ask them to do this activity as a group, and ultimately you'll be left with an artifact that gives you an understanding of what people value. Buy a feature, give people monopoly money, give them say 1,000 rupees each, and you put ideas that you want to try. Think of your annual function. You want to do something different, but you have a lot of ideas. You can't do everything. You have a fixed budget. So you get together again, this group of students maybe, give them monopoly money and price each experience. Say something is 100 rupees, something is 500 rupees. Tell them to spend that 1,000 rupees and choose what they would buy if given the choice. When you add a monetary amount to something, you really get to know what people value. And there you'll have ideas for your annual day or whatever it is you're trying to do. Experience diagramming. This is something when you've gone ahead, you have a good understanding of how your school functions. Try to illustrate that experience. Put it on paper. See where the opportunity lies. Where can we improve? Where are we facing a problem? You can put it as if it's something to do with students all rushing out when school is over. Draw that journey map as a physical thing. See where you can intervene. If it's a subject that we've been struggling with over the years, see how the learning experience is. Get together a group of teachers and put it on paper. And when you have it visually in front of you, you can then start observing patterns and priorities. So this is something that designers also get wrong most often. We have a challenge. Okay, let's say we are feeling burdened by maintenance of current products or infrastructure. That is a challenge. But what is the question? What do we solve for? That's when one problem can lead to hundreds of questions. 3 out here would be, how might we maintain products during everyday work? How might we eliminate the need for maintenance? How might we become proud of the way we maintain our products? And you can come up, given a group, you'll come up with 50, 100 questions. Then try to combine these and see what makes sense. That's when you start with the first diamond. That's when you'll go ahead and do research. And ultimately, the solution comes at the very end. You don't start with a solution, you start with a problem and a question. Concept ideation, again, a lot of fun. So you've got rows and columns here. You can make it up to, say, 5 by 5, a table that is 5 by 5 cells. The columns will be people. So let's put out here, we've got package holidays, but let's put students, let's put teachers, let's put parents, let's put families of students. And in the rows, you've got categories for enabling solutions. So in terms of, again, package holidays, you had like partnerships, discounts. But for school, you'll have categories that you know best. Now, at each intersection of these people and categories, come up with ideas. Come up with as many ideas as you can. See how you can serve your end user, the student, better. Again, 2 games. It's again an ideation game. I think this will be fun in a classroom setting. Make groups of 4 or 5 students and make them play round robin. What is round robin? You print one worksheet, again, something that you'll easily find online in a template. You identify a challenge that is in need of fresh ideas. Do it during your EVS class. Environmental challenges would be fun to work with. Make a worksheet that is folded into 4 parts. The first part is the challenge that you have. And form a team of 4 or 5 students, give them each one worksheet. So in the second fold, they will each write an unconventional solution. What do we do about global warming? Maybe we'll start freezing more ice. I know that doesn't make sense. It's unconventional, but why not? Let's put that there. Then, after say 2 or 3 minutes, everyone passes the worksheet to the person on their left or right. And there, that person is going to read that idea and they're going to write a reason why that idea won't work. I know we cannot freeze more ice because freezing ice will also create pollution. So that is a problem. That's why the idea won't work. Now, again, after a minute or 2, we pass it around to the next person. That person is now going to write a solution of how we can make that idea work and overcome that problem. Even if at the end of this, you don't get solutions that make a lot of sense, you get people thinking, you get your students thinking. So this is something that you can do it yourself. We do it a lot of times as designers. We get a problem statement. We just do this. This gives you quick ideas. It gets your brain thinking. And it's a lot of fun. Crazy Eights, similar. Everyone gets one worksheet divided into 8 squares. You have a prompt and you just draw crazy ideas. That's why it's called 8 ideas in 8 minutes. 8 minutes is important because you don't want to overthink. What is at the top of your mind? When you think of something, what is the simplest idea that you get? And this is the starting point for building better solutions. Second last one, storyboarding. I think this is something that we all must have done at some point. Think of it as making a comic strip. Again, you've got blank rectangles. You assemble a diverse group. Student group is always going to be diverse, so that is never a problem. You draft the main storyline, beginning, middle, end. You determine the characters, the setting, and you draw key frames for a future scenario. Think 2050, that is your time frame. And you include one phrase for each frame. So you have a storyboard here. Last one, think of it for higher grades, in 9th or 10th standard, 8th standard maybe. You're going and doing research, again, for anything that you're doing, any science, geography, history. Suppose in history, you're trying to study a particular era, 1850s in India. You do your research, but you categorize it, you summarize it, you put it in 2 lines. I go ahead, read an entire Wikipedia page. How do I convey that? I put the summary in 2 to 3 bullet points, and I put the source. Where did I get that from? Was it a newspaper? Was it the internet? Where on the internet? Political, economic, social, technological, environment, legal. What this gives me, when I have a time frame, say 1850s, I now have a holistic idea of the scenario in that time frame. And that is the beginning of my research phase. So that was a very, very, very quick summary of design thinking. There are a lot of methods. I would encourage you to just start looking up on Google, but I'll also share some websites which have a lot of these in detail with worksheets, and they don't take much time. I think the maximum you'll have to spend on like the quick ones is 30 minutes. Some get done within like 10 minutes. So it's perfect for a classroom, for a meeting, for a development session, but strongly suggest that you try it first before you try it in your classroom. So connecting design thinking to education. As I said before, IDEO laid out a non-linear design thinking process, which was also valid in the context of education. In an ideal classroom setting, the learning experience is interactive and students can question until they are satisfied with the reasoning. So if my teacher tells me something, I don't have to accept it. I will ask why. I will question the teacher if until she cannot give me a satisfactory answer, until I'm not satisfied, I can continue to ask why. They can frame questions, gather inspiration, generate ideas, make those ideas tangible, test them rather than be tested on how much of the content they remember, and share these ideas through compelling storytelling. But this is definitely an ideal scenario. We have time constraints, we have curriculum constraints. So more practically, design thinking at a school level first needs to be more of actual thinking and reflection. The normalization and encouragement of questioning what is being taught and digging deeper into concepts rather than accepting without understanding. This is definitely easier said than done and requires a change from a fixed to growth mindset, which might take a considerable amount of time to come about. So if we look back, there are elements of this approach in India's Gurukul system years ago, before we had the British come in and set up Macaulay's education system. And phenomena of the world were observed, broken down, and taught holistically, not siloed by subjects. So we need to be able to employ design thinking to help students receive a holistic learning experience. The true worth of design thinking in the context of education will only be realized if it permeates the system in such a way that it does not have to be explicitly taught. You don't need to go teach design thinking. You don't need to learn design thinking. Naturally, if you start questioning things, spending more time on ideating, you are doing design thinking, even if unconsciously. This way of learning is similar to phenomena-based learning, and it has been practiced in Finland's education system for decades, complemented by traditional subjects. The teaching style encourages students to apply various skills and concepts to start connecting the dots at an early age. It resembles real-life problem solving to give pupils a clearer understanding of the complex world. So design thinking, as Tim Brown said, was a method to problem solve ultimately. So there's a very close connection in this teaching method and design thinking. Finnish students are known to score higher than most of their peers on international assessment tests, despite minimal homework and a curriculum that puts a big emphasis on music, arts, and outdoor activities versus STEM learning. So Finland's approach is an example of the spirit and intent of design thinking permeating the system to the extent that they don't recognize it explicitly. They don't say we're doing design thinking. Consequential value will only be derived if we move away from jargon and see how there can be a change brought about by using the design thinking mindset. If the system has empathy, is open to new ideas, dares to experiment, and is human centered, then it is implicitly practicing design thinking. I believe this is somewhat the case in Finland. They did not have to decide to start practicing, teaching, learning design thinking from a particular day. While I'm referring to Finland's education system, it is essential to remember the stark difference between our two countries and scenarios. India and Finland have similar education budgets, but India has 240 times the number of students in public schools. So there is another example. The contrasting picture is Singapore, a country smaller in area, but with roughly the same population as Finland. It has a history of emphasizing rote learning, memorization, and hard work with high stake examination. Success is the goal. However, Singaporean students also excel at those same international tests, just like their counterparts in Finland. This has been possible through the continuous evolution of education policy based on evidence, research, and long-term planning. Classroom innovation, focus on vocational education, careful coordination of curriculum, teaching, and assessment, and outstanding execution is behind their success. So this serves as an example that there is not one way to go about it. Whatever we come up with is going to be different from what anyone else is doing out there. But we can always look at best practices and try to contextualize them for us. So at the end of this part of the section, I want to discuss a quote from one of my professors. She was a professor of entrepreneurship. She still is. If students develop curiosity in their world, and in particular, the willingness to dive into frustrations or frictions they themselves encounter, they may find opportunity. But this transitions me to what is the broader goal? Why are we even talking about this? So the Indian government, if you look at it, through their Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, all of them does not just aim to make India a manufacturing hub. We just don't want factory jobs. We want to transform our economy with innovation at the forefront. We want to create those new things. So creating those new things are not going to come from teaching engineering or sciences. You need to start teaching how to think. So let's briefly look at this broader goal. After all, education has that Herculean task of moving civilizations forward. So Niti Aayog, in one of their reports, India Innovation Index 2020, which coincided with NEP 2020, said innovation permeates into society and state as both formal and informal institutions evolve with changes in societal interactions, culture, communication, and even education structures, especially in the digital era. But this relation is symbiotic, as changes in society, economy, and polity also play a role in driving innovation. The report also spoke about creating a conducive culture and reorienting the education system. But as I said before, there is no linear pathway to get there. Design thinking and methods can be used to help improve pedagogy as a means to connect concepts within the current curriculum. The aim is to enhance learning outcomes for students. I'm not suggesting change the curriculum. I'm just suggesting let's try to innovate within the boundaries that we have. Regardless of interest, creative thinking and problem solving are invaluable skills throughout life. So this can be done without introducing a new subject or requiring a radical shift. Meaningful value will be derived if the focus moves away from popular terms and explores how change can be brought about using the design thinking mindset. I keep repeating the design thinking mindset, but that's what the focus is. Let's get design thinking to work within the system rather than being caught up on figuring out how to impose it, how to teach it, how to involuntarily deploy it across our institutions. So humor me for a moment. This is a thought experiment. It's purely a hypothesis. Hasn't been tested, but if someone does do it, I would love to hear your experience. So students can have a more engaging experience if the cyclic pattern of teaching topics in a subject is consciously as well as cautiously modified into a four-phase process. There are two perspectives inside a classroom: the educators, which is you, the teacher, and the students. Children are naturally curious, and this curiosity can be stifled if concepts are unilaterally delivered. I know this sounds funny because I am unilaterally talking right now, but I'll definitely come to the anything that you drop in the chat. Because they're coming back to the concepts, because they're delivered just because they're part of the curriculum, without a clear explanation of why it is being taught. Why should I learn about chemical bonding? How is it going to help me in the future? What does it help me understand? How does it connect to whatever geography I'm learning? It does. We all know it does. But did we know that when we were in the classroom? So before a new topic or chapter is taught, the educator sparks curiosity to trigger an exploration by the students. This is done before the introduction of the topic in the classroom. It can be a simple question, task, one of the design thinking methods maybe, or something to observe in one's surroundings. This exploration would lead to unanswered questions in the students' minds and generate interest in the topic that follows. I think you must be getting where I'm going. This aligns with the double diamond where you're generating questions in the first phase. For example, before introducing the concept of gravity, students can be asked to try with a simple piece of card how they can stop water from falling out of a glass filled to the brim when turned upside down. Again, something that we've all done in school. But ask them to question it and ask them for a reason why that happens. Don't teach it to them. Just at the start, tell them to figure it out themselves. An interesting cohort of students will also be a motivator for you to teach. So the educator then teaches and delivers the content as laid out in the curriculum, keeping in mind to directly or indirectly address all the questions that came up in the exploration. Students now learn the subject matter and make sense of the phenomena from their exploration. Again, it was a very simple example. Something that is based on what you're teaching is an example you'll have to find. So this leads to a cycle of learning and absorption for students and teachers and evaluation for educators. Absorption is a measure of learning and evaluation validates it. This evaluation shouldn't be limited to objective measures through examinations and tests. The educator should have some latitude for subjective measures based on the classroom experiences. After all, each student is different. Lastly, students spend time reflecting on what they have learned if they can look back, connect the dots to their initial exploration, and identify other instances where this new knowledge is applicable in their environment. This is a self-assessment of the absorption of knowledge. Educators review this cycle and assess the outcome based on the evaluation phase. These phases can be aided by various design thinking methods and techniques that are adapted to the classroom context. Students do not need to gain an understanding of design thinking as a concept. Educators who have a good understanding of these methods can wield them effectively to gradually create a conducive learning environment. This can work well with the National Education Policy as well, which looks to give teachers more autonomy in choosing pedagogy aspects. Game-like activities help trigger and maintain situational interest because the mind naturally attends to situations that have been missing details. To foster student engagement, classroom instruction decisions are based on 4 emblematic questions. How do I feel? Am I interested? Is this important? And can I do this? The first 2 questions focus on the attention of the student, and the last 2 questions gauge the engagement of the student's interest in the topic you're teaching. An interesting thought came up in one of our interviews with an educator who had taught students in India and the US at a school level. She told us that teachers are capable of teaching almost all the subjects taught up to middle school. However, larger schools usually assign subjects to them and they continue teaching the same topic year after year. This construct could be shuffled up such that either teachers switch subjects each year or the silos of subjects are completely broken up on the educator side and they rotate between topics instead of subjects. Doing so would lessen the inertia of getting set in one's ways, having taught the same thing repeatedly, and encourage teachers to learn and experiment constantly. Another educator and former vice principal of a school in Delhi suggested that the reflection phase in the framework that you can see can also be called creation. She said that at the end of the day, we are imparting knowledge which should result in creating new knowledge. In the present scenario, students are thoroughly disengaged. They are busy with after-school tuition and don't even have time to play. She emphasized the importance of the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So these were a lot of conversations we had with educators as well as officers in the Ministry of Education on what they thought about the national education policy and what went behind formulating it. So coming from the framework to the growth mindset. So the psychologist Carol Dweck, her research was on fostering the growth mindset. She talks about how some teachers make students' progress explicit by giving pre-tests at the beginning of a unit that purposely covers material students do not know. When students compare their inevitably poor performance on these pre-tests with their improved performance on unit post-tests, they get used to the idea that with application, they can become smarter. The 4 phase framework from the thought experiment aligns well with her research. Care would have to be taken to establish the distinct nature and purpose of pre-tests and as opposed to post-tests, which are embedded in the system as unit tests, examinations, and where the current expectation is to get a high score. Those with a growth mindset believe intelligence can be developed. Similarly, innovation can be developed. It doesn't come innately to anyone. And their ability and students' abilities can be enhanced through the learning process. Carol Dweck has researched how mindsets affect a student's performance in the classroom. Students engage in more challenging learning activities, have more opportunities to make mistakes and struggle, allowing the teacher to explore new strategies. Her research showed that praising students for the process they've engaged in, the effort they applied, the strategies they used, the choices they made, the persistence they displayed, and so on, yields more long-term benefits than telling them they are smart when they succeed. So there will be a consistent set of challenges that teachers and schools face, and they center around the design and development of learning experiences, which is curriculum, learning environments, which is the spaces, the infrastructure, school programs and experiences, which is the processes and tools that you deploy, and system strategies, goals, and policies. So using design thinking in that context, I've picked this up directly from IDEO's Design Thinking Education Toolkit. Another thing I would strongly suggest going through because they have contextualized the design thinking process completely for education, which is applicable anywhere across the globe. So coming out of the 4 things, let's discuss them one by one. Talking about curriculum, every day you design ways to interact with your students around content. You can follow a design process to be more intentional about connecting this content to the interest and desire of today's learners by finding out more about the things they do outside of school and connecting that to the content you are bringing to them. What is the latest video game everyone's interested in? What are they still interested in sports? How much time do they spend in front of the screen? How are they communicating with each other outside the classroom? So coming to the how might we, the questions. So how might I inspire students to engage in concerns of the environment? How might I engage my students in compelling ways around learning world history? How might I develop students to be active seekers of knowledge in subjects that they have little knowledge of? So these are questions that you will come up with. These are questions that are there at the back of the mind. You have been discussing them, but let's put it down together. Think of ways of how to solve for each of these questions. Coming to physical spaces, physical environment of the classroom sends a big signal about how you want your students to behave. Are they all sitting facing you? Are they sitting on tables facing each other? Are you at the front of the classroom or in the middle of the classroom? All of these are part of the physical space and they affect the learning experience. Right now, we try to think of classroom spaces as standards, kids in rows, sitting in desks. But by rethinking the design of our spaces, and this doesn't mean making infrastructure changes, just rearranging furniture can be a change in the design, in the space. We can send new messages to students about how they should feel and interact in the classroom. So again, coming to the questions that arise, how might I use my classroom space in different ways to help set my students at ease? How might we reimagine our school's library for the needs and interests of today's learner? How might we create an exciting and effective space for teachers to collaborate? End user is the student, but we ourselves have to be motivated. Coming to the third one, process and tools. Your school already has a designated set of processes and tools for everything that's needed. And it may or may not be setting up your school for success. This is typically outside of the classroom and specific interactions around learning and more around how the system operates. Every process is already designed and thus it can be redesigned. Sometimes creating tools can be essential to supporting newly designed processes. Questions: how might I engage parents as an integrated part of the student's learning experience? How might we re-envision arrival and departure procedures at school? How might we redesign our school schedule to be centered around the needs of today's families and teachers? Last, systems. Not everyone can always make decisions for the system that they exist within, but everyone can contribute to the design of that system. The students can contribute to the design of the system in which they study. Designing systems is about balancing the complexity of many different stakeholders and the needs of the operation. When designing a system, we're often setting high-level strategy, such as stating a vision, priorities, policies, and key communication around those ideas. How might we track the development of students' character traits over time to help our school philosophy more intentionally? How might we connect more with our neighborhood community? How might we use our school as a research and development hub for schools nationwide? So think big, and then we put the filter of what is viable, feasible, and desirable. This was an example again from IDEO, how Oromondale Elementary School designed their approach. So it basically explores how they hosted a session for teachers, staff. It was a 2-day summer workshop around design thinking where they had to reimagine what a student would need to know in the year 2060. We don't know what's going to happen in 2060, but we can certainly imagine a scenario. What about those 21st century skills where teachers collectively discussed what would the skills look like decades from now? So they had a discovery phase. They then tried to interpret all the thoughts and ideas they had. Then they tried to ideate on how can we make these actionable? What can we do as a solution? They then experimented, brainstormed to create a prototype of what they want to do. And ultimately, over the course of the year, they tried it out, they experimented and evolved based on the feedback they got. They came together the next year in the summer and they shared their experiments, and the whole process continued. So I know we were scheduled for 3 hours. I'm done way before time, and that's because I now want to go through the questions. So let me see what is there. Give me a second. So I see there are no questions. So if there is anything, either you can raise your hand, then I can call you out. You can unmute, and it doesn't even have to be a question. It can also be a thought, something that you are doing. It would be great if you can share if you've done anything. I wanted to take a survey at the end, but sorry, I could not. But if you're doing something around this space, or if there's something innovative you've tried in your school, please feel free to share ideas. So I see one thing from Nandita ma'am out here, which says, how do we implement these ideas in a classroom of 54 students? So that is where we begin with the challenge. We've got 54 students, each with this slightly different needs. The question is, I think, applicable to most Indian classrooms. I know classroom sizes might be gradually decreasing over time. When I was in class, we had about 40, 45 students. But the thing is, this is sort of agnostic from the number of students we have. Today, we are a group of over 500 people out here. Could we run a session? Maybe not. We're in a virtual setting. But if you're in person, you can always make those 50 students into groups of 5. So now you've got 10 groups, more manageable. You can obviously give them a worksheet each. And once you explain what they have to do, say they have to do a round robin session, And depending on their age, if they get what they're trying to do, it's a self-running exercise. So time-wise, it takes 10 to 15 minutes. And then every week, maybe you can have one of those groups come and share out. So if you go and look at IDEO's frameworks, they have all the requirements, they have a worksheet, and they also have the time that you are expected to take to carry it out. Sangeeta ma'am is asking, there is always a space constraint. So that is where the school needs to get together and discuss. I'm not saying make more space. Try to put, can we have one day or 1 week where we can empty out a classroom of all the furniture and host activities in that classroom? In a school, if you have got like whatever, 50 classrooms, could we make one a space where we can rotate and carry out activities? Sapna ma'am's asking, can you share websites? Yes, I have it on a slide after this session, after this one. So I'll definitely share that, and I'll also share the links over email with Geeta ma'am, who can then forward it to everyone. So Cecilia ma'am is asking, can you elaborate how we can bring this about in high school English ICSE schools? So this was an example that I removed from my slide due to, I thought I'll run over time. But ICSE, I'm not sure, but if they still, let's say we still teach Shakespeare, the English is quite different from anything that we use today conventionally. It's, after all, Shakespearean English. Could we then conduct some activities around it? Could we think of the time we are in Great Britain? Shakespeare is still alive. The English that we speak is still the same. Now, instead of giving an essay topic to your students, could you give a topic? But now the challenge is write it in Shakespearean English. It can be a small paragraph, it can be 1 page, it can be a poem, but use Shakespearean English. What would that do? That would then get them to open their books again at home, see and observe the English, the grammatical differences that they have. Test them not on syntax, test them on, grade them on, let's say, what are the creative ideas? How did they go ahead and research what Shakespeare in Britain looked like? Even though you're in a literature class, that research, if a student did research on history, that is adding value to the student. So consider that while you're evaluating. I'm just looking at the questions. So Geeta ma'am is asking how to deal with a wide variation of mindsets of students. So this is a wicked problem. By wicked problem, I mean it is so systemic that you do not have one solution to it. It is, again, a series of solutions for a whole series of problems that are built into it. You have a variation of mindsets. Think about that as an opportunity. When I said you have a design thinking is all about making a diverse team. So that variation in mindset is the diversity I was talking about in a classroom. Today, I've done engineering. I'm an engineer, but I'm also doing design. So I'm a designer. That is a label that I have. It looks good on my LinkedIn, but I can do different things at different proficiencies. So at the school level, I was never an engineer. I was not a designer. Family thought that I would probably become a doctor. And that's what they thought was my natural inclination. It wasn't even something that I was interested in. So form teams where you know your students the best. Try to form teams where students have different temperaments. They come with different skills. Someone is doing well in geography. Someone's doing well in history. Someone's doing well in literature. Get them together to form a group. Give them a problem statement to solve together as a team. Don't tell them that you are good at geography, so you focus on the geography or you focus on the history. Let them try to do everything. Naturally, if the team works well over time, and this is not a one-day activity, you need to give them a couple of weeks. Maybe they spend half an hour each week doing this. And naturally, they will outshine in their proficiencies. But this will only work if the teachers sit together. You would know if you're a literature teacher, you know who's doing well in literature, but you cannot know who's doing well in history just based on a report card. you need to get together and figure out what those groups of students are. So Arunima ma'am is asking about what indicators should we look for to assess if students are engaging with and benefiting from design thinking approaches. So you don't need to evaluate whether they're benefiting from design thinking approaches. Sure, you want to see if what you're trying to do is making sense, but there's no direct way of measuring anything that is design related or thinking related. What you can definitely measure is, if you've been teaching for the past 5 years, you've been teaching history for the past 5 years, you have a sentiment of which chapter do students enjoy, which chapters do they get bored in, where do they outperform usually. So the places where students are not engaged or are getting bored, try incorporating these activities only for that chapter. See if there's a difference year over year. Are they better able to perform in their tests? Are they more engaged in that topic? Does that topic then end up becoming their favorite topic instead of what it was earlier? So that would be an indirect measure whether whatever activity you're trying to do is working. I don't think, are there any other questions? So Rohini ma'am is sharing that she uses debate sessions for environmental application subject. She forms teams, two teams. One team is for and one is for against. Students come up with innovative ideas more than the textbook. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. Debate would fall under English, but environmental applications is a completely different subject. So don't silo them. You can do anything in any subject, and maybe try, as teachers, could you try switching up for one class? Can you teach one chapter of geography instead of English? And naturally, you would bring a different skill set to that classroom. And students, I think, initially might be amused and might not see value in that. They might even complain, like, we want our geography teacher, history teacher back. But that would help you get a new perspective on how a different subject is going with the same set of students. Sangeeta ma'am is asking for the PPT or link. I would be more than happy to share the slideshow. I'll again share a PDF version with Geeta ma'am. My entire thesis on which this is built is again available freely for download online. I'm going to drop that link as well. So, and I'll drop my email ID as well if you need any material that I've missed out on. I'm more than happy to communicate over email, send you whatever you think is useful out of this. So Tuhina ma'am is asking about, many of us are faced with time constraint. Very true. How do we solve this problem? So the time constraint will always be there. You can't do anything about that. But again, what you need to start thinking of is, once you start trying these methods yourselves, don't go ahead and implement it in the classroom. Try it yourselves as teachers together. You will realize that these methods don't take more time than what you're currently doing. In fact, there might be a chance, if the students embrace it, it might actually save you time, because instead of repeating things, instead of students going back and doing homework, instead of students, forgetting and then you have to like do a revision session, this might deliver content more efficiently in the first go. So again, this is something you'll have to try, and I'll be happy if you can tell me if you've tried this if you try this in the future, and if it works. I'll be more than happy to know, because again, as I said, I am not an educator. You know your classroom the best. But from all our research we did, we realized that this is not something that you have to do in addition to it. It is a substitute and it can save time. Geeta ma'am is saying, as a biology teacher, I lead them to think at the start of the lesson, as mentioned by you, as to why we are learning the lesson, and progress further with their thoughts that may be lesson oriented or beyond. But there are always a set of students who may not join in. So this is where these methods come in. when you divide students into groups or when you hand them a worksheet to ideate, there is very little option to not participate. You give them a storyboard to draw, everyone will have to turn in something. So that's where you get participation in. But yeah, this is definitely a problem that I'm sure there's always a set of group students in the classroom that might not cooperate with whatever you're trying to do. And that obviously leads, that is discouraging as an educator as yourself. But give it a try, schedule some of these activities, and the fun nature of it might get them involved. So my Pratiksha said, my question is, what can be different methods to pass on your inventions to this new generation of students with different mindsets? So the mindset shift is what we're talking about. Inventions are something that might not be timeless. Again, as the example said, 2060, are these skills going to be relevant? What we've been seeing is what you learn today might not even be relevant 5 years from now. Even professionals are questioning, are my skill sets? I went ahead and learned computer science at the top university in the world, but is my skill set going to be applicable 5 years from now? Will companies even need me? How much will I upskill every year? Things are just going too fast, which is where the mindset shift is needed. Upskilling isn't something that you have to do. As long as that curiosity and reflection is something that you keep practicing, you keep questioning, that is what is you need to pass on. You don't really need to pass on any tangible thing from today. So I think YouTube, there are some comments that my friends got. How do we incorporate this in pre-primary as suggested the end user involved? So pre-primary is tricky because it is tricky, but it's also an opportunity because in pre-primary, you might not have subjects the way it is defined at higher school levels. So that's when the whole phenomena-based learning comes. Can you ask them to step outdoors? Can you take them, if your school has a field, can you take them there? Can you keep some props out there for them to play with? And then try to integrate these concepts into that. You definitely cannot give them a worksheet, but you can give them a storyboard. You can give them a board to draw on, and you can ask them to make that story. So storytelling is a very important skill because a lot of times we have ideas in our head, but we don't know how to convey it. Even as a designer, there are a few designers who do better work than any of us, but they're not able to convey it to the end user. They're not able to convey it to the client. They're not able to convey it to whoever they're showing it to because storytelling is missing. And then there are sometimes when your idea might not be that novel or great, but you're great at storytelling, which makes it interesting. So that is a skill that can be developed early on. And I feel like younger children are better because they're more at storytelling because they have the wildest dreams, which is sometimes nothing aligned with reality. So that is an excellent opportunity for them to share those stories. So we've got one which says we are always talking about effective teaching and effective learning, but still relying on traditional methods of examination. Everyone wants marks. So that is honestly something beyond any of our control. I am not sure how much influence you as a group have on policy, but that was definitely a challenge we came across, which is where the pre-tests came in. You want students to measure growth. There will always be those marks and report cards. There'll be board exams, whatever form they end up taking over the years. So the growth mindset is something that you can cultivate. Don't think of it as adding another test. It's again an activity that you do maybe in the classroom for 15 minutes before you start a topic. Make students realize that this is what they don't know. That is whenever you are teaching, you will be answering the questions that they don't know. Today, if you directly start teaching something, it's just more knowledge that is being heaped on me every day when I come to school. But it's not answering anything because I never had the question that you're trying to teach me. So that is something we can do. I know it does not directly answer your question on examination, but that is something we'll have to work with. For Hindi subject, anything that is applicable to English should be applicable to any language. You can also have geography concepts being incorporated in whatever you're teaching in Hindi. Definitely, we are all writing essays. Tweak those topics, tweak the storytelling aspect to do that. Why can't we make a storyboard in Hindi class as well? We can definitely do that. So language is just a medium. It's again, any subject, irrespective of language, can be incorporated with another subject, and those connections can be formed. Karthik, can I request you to drop all the links that I'm going to come to in a slide. I think I'll just change the slide. So coming to resources, I'll come back to the questions as well. So keep dropping them. So Stanford D School is a pioneer in design thinking. They have a lot of resources available on their website, which you can again read through. I have just touched upon design thinking, and I don't want to go further than that, because when you pick and choose what resources you want to explore, I think that will be contextualized. For such a large group, and I don't know any of you personally, the school, I don't know most schools, I didn't want to go deep into a certain part of it, because then that would give a wrong idea of design thinking. So these are the resources. Stanford D School, IDEO, definitely the pioneer of design thinking. They have a design thinking education toolkit. So some of my slides were directly picked out from their content. It's a PDF that you can freely access, and it has worksheets also in that PDF to get started. IDEO U, again, an IDEO offshoot, more design thinking resources, and IDEO design thinking resources. This is probably the most vast collection. So this link has probably 50 more links inside of it. Different contexts, elementary school, innovation, think of commercial aspects, design thinking for environmental problems, societal problems, everything is in here. So when you're looking at individual subjects, you might find something out here, and don't avoid links if they say it's for corporates or any of that, because a lot of this is situation agnostic. You will have to tweak it. You will have to contextualize it for the age group you're teaching. But if you get a good understanding, because all of you will, if you read through like corporate resources, you'll understand it, and you'll be the best to contextualize it and share resources. Some more, Google has a Google Design Sprint Kit. Again, it's design thinking methods with different names, but they have also summarized it very well. Luma system is that big grid of methods that's shown you, 36 methods. Here, the best part is they explain each method in 5 to 6 bullet points. And those bullet points are directly actionable. So they'll tell you what exactly to do. And they also sometimes have links to templates you can use. So Luma was acquired by this company called Mural, which makes a whiteboarding tool. They have these templates freely available. You can take a printout and use it in your class. You can draw it on your whiteboards and use it. And Nielsen Norman Group, I've put this last because again, they have a lot of articles and videos, but again, it's a little more on the corporate side. So I would suggest like explore the other links first. And if you're still looking for more detailed explanations, Nielsen Norman might have that on certain methods. Last set of resources, Design Thinking for Education in India. This was my thesis. It's a heavy PDF. You can download it from dtedu.in. There's a PDF download button. You can download that. All of what I shared today is there in that. There's just a little bit more of design thinking in my slides, and I'll definitely pass it along to Geeta ma'am, who can then share it with you. And last, it's my personal website, yashbanka.com. I don't have any resources out there, but if there's any resource that you feel is missing, or what I would love to hear is feedback on, if you ever in the next year or two or whenever, try out any of these methods in your school, whether for teachers or students, or if you've done it and you haven't been able to share it today in this session, I'd love to hear, because this is a topic, even though I'm not constantly involved in the research part of it today, and I might not be up to date with what the different curriculums are or what's happening in the classroom today. I know technology is playing a big aspect. It's been, I know I said it's just been not that long since I was in a classroom, but the pace of change is very fast. So anything that you want to share, please share it here. And if Geeta ma'am has a way to, I can then probably summarize some of these and send it to Geeta ma'am. And if there's way to share best practices between schools, because you have another 19 sessions lined up, I'm sure you could probably find a way to share it among yourselves. So thank you so much. And yeah, I think over to Mr. Kedia. Thank you so much for having me.
Mr. Yash, it's a very, very informative session, but you guide our people, participants, what is the best thing to change the mindset?
Sir, change in mindset. I think we should not focus on changing the students' mindset first. I think we need to change our mindset. So one common theme across all the messages we had are great problem statements. I don't have answers to those problem statements because I'm not the teacher. But you have so many teachers. Everyone who's raised that questions has teachers around them every day. I would suggest take that exam statement, sit together one day in your own school and look at these methods and start brainstorming. Spend half an hour a month, spend 1 hour a month, whatever time you have between in breaks or after school or whenever you meet. If you're working on Saturdays when you're not teaching, and solve those problems yourselves and share it with the world. I think that is the change in mindset that will have to come. We will have to accept the constraints we have in terms of curriculum and resources.
That is an excellent idea. Interaction is the best thing to change a mindset. But whether do you suggest any literature or any good book written by the great authors? Not 200 pages, 300 pages. These days, nobody reads 200, 300 pages.
Exactly.
Nobody has time. So even a sweet, small book or something which can change a
So-
mindset.
All the links, they are in the chat as well. They are very bite-sized. Even if you read one a day, every one of those links has a lot of other links and articles in them on design thinking methods. So if you just go through that, that's better than any book because you have actionable methods out there and they are easy to read. So you don't have to get any book. There's a lot of literature out there. You go Google, IDEO will have a lot of published books. Tim Brown has his own book.
Not the book, even videos, even suppose books
Videos. So
not
yeah,
there.
all of them have videos.
Videos.
IDEO has videos on design thinking methods as well as the whole concept. So all of these links have a lot of resources within them. I know I've just shared like 7, 8 links, but they have resources within them. And if there's any specific resource that anyone's looking for, again, please drop me an email. I'll try to find that resource as best as I can and I'll share those links with you.
Now, Geeta, you can take over. Thank you very much, Mr. Yash Banka. Very, very informative and educative session. We look forward to meet you again.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a real honor.
Remain here. Don't leave the session.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Young India, we don't want to leave. Now, Geeta, you can take over. Kalpana, anybody else? Kalpana?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I was not able to unmute myself.
Okay,
So-
okay.
Thank you, Yash. I don't know if you remember me, Kalpana Patange from your school. And it was extremely informative, has made us all think, which is something which is very much required in today's time with the young children being used to social media, having so much more knowledge and so fast. We need to keep pace. So that is what I felt that we as educators and teachers have to change our mindset, keep pace with our children, find interesting content, share, ask questions. So all what you have said, Yash, I think it is good thought-provoking ideas you've given us, and we will go through all the links. Thank you. And this is a thank you on behalf of all of us. How many? We are some 200 plus people watching you, listening to you. And thank you, Kedia sir, for bringing
Oh,
interesting content, interesting people, and to see our students becoming such thought design thinkers. It's so
Yeah.
happy, proud feeling.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, Yash.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kalpana.
Kedia sir.
Definitely remember you and Meena miss during 9th and 10th grade.
Yes.
I think Jamnabai played a crucial role in getting everything started for me.
Thank you. And brilliant children, so of course they do well, and we feel very proud. So do come over to school sometime, Yash.
Will definitely. Yeah. Next time I'm in Mumbai, I'll definitely.
Yes, please do drop in. Over to you, Kedia sir.
And I think Geeta has to come forward now.
I think Geeta ma'am, I'm not able to see. She
Ah.
had some other meetings, that's
Acha,
what
acha,
she was
acha.
mentioning. So she
Okay,
must have
I think
left.
It was well done. I think very good program. Okay. I'll oblige to all of you, including my core team, Yash, HJ College, all participants. And today, good news is that we did not find anybody on the bed or on the bathroom.
Yes.
Everybody was attentive today. So good part. Chalo, yes, Young India, we'll see you again. Huh?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can we end the meeting now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Kalpana, thank you
Thank
very,
you,
very
thank
much.
you everyone. Thank you, Yash.
Thank you everyone for attending.